The food pyramid was presented as an ultimate guide to a healthy diet. But what if it wasn't as reliable as we actually thought? How did the food pyramid mislead millions of Americans for decades?
On the origins of the food pyramid, how it became flawed, and the long-term consequences that it's had, and how to build a better framework for nutritional today.
Welcome to Evolve, the #1 podcast about relationships. Join Greg and Leah as they embark on the deep topic of relationships, and not just the romantic ones. Think wider, deeper, broader. Tune in each week as they chat about things like our relationship with food, money, parents, kids, pets, self-esteem, and so much more. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the Evolve episodes. Welcome to another episode of Evolve with...
I'm Greg.
And I'm Leah. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're back, thank you for joining us. Today we are talking about a topic that may or may not be a little more controversial and somewhat political, though I will say we really try to steer away from political topics that divide people.
Yes.
That's just not super helpful. When we're all divided, people instantly get defensive when they don't agree with a topic. But again, just some of our topics do end up being a little divisive due to their nature. This might be one of them. And today we're talking about the food pyramid and really what are some of the, I guess I'll say, breaking down the lies of the food pyramid. I know the food pyramid, I think it came out in 1992, I believe, don't quote me, but just the stuff that I think it's brought into our lives that's actually not helped us as a society.
Remember my daughters learning the food pyramid and that the grains were the biggest part of the food pyramid.
Yeah.
Remember that food chain being all grain. And what's weird is that's
food chain?
Food pyramid.
Yeah.
The first
no,
level
it has dairy
was all
and
grain.
veggies and fruits, but the biggest portion is like your grains and stuff. But then they've tried to redo it in recent years to be the food plate. To try to improve
I know what I was saying.
something.
I was thinking about the grains, and we just took a trip to Vegas and went through Utah and all those areas where there's cattle and stuff. And I was wondering what the hell. There wasn't that many cattle out there. But secondly, the fat farms we ran through, where
There was a couple
where they in order to get these cows ready for butchering, they're feeding them what? Over sources of grain. I mean, just filling them with grain.
And hormones. They're wanting to plump up all this meat. But let's not get too into it just yet. So let me go back to the food pyramid. And I've got a bunch of notes on my phone here that we both do that we kind of want to remember to cover and just point out. The food pyramid was presented as an ultimate guide to a healthy diet. But what if it wasn't as reliable as we actually thought? So just to set the tone, this is just informational. I said also, maybe not even, I would still research. Yeah. One of our favorite things that we've done since we met is just, we love to study stuff and research stuff. And I wouldn't say we go like crazy ass deep, but we just love learning stuff. We've always been on this. Sometimes you can go very deep. But other times we just, we find that learning new things is interesting, keeps our brain growing and evolving. But we want to talk about I want to ask you this question. How did the food pyramid mislead millions of Americans for decades? And I'm just going to share a quick story that I remember. Well, actually, maybe we're starting to go here a second ago. When I was in elementary school, so I was born in '79, so I was in kindergarten. I went to a small country town. I was born in a small town in Maine, and there was maybe 100 kids in the whole school from kindergarten to second. That was our elementary. And in kindergarten was 1983, I think I was going in, 84, something like that. And I remember I loved PE, I loved fitness, and we were just talking about this today because JFK, the president, brought in a lot of like the presidential fitness, and I think Reagan did some stuff as well to just get our country healthy again, because both of those two presidents were seeing how quickly we were going downhill health-wise. And I remember, we were just talking about this morning, I remember doing all of those exercises.
I
loved being outside and having a gym every day.
We not only had PE in elementary school, we had recess as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's still recess and there is still PE in public schools. It's just not those standards.
I was talking to you this morning. We were running a 600-yard dash every day when I was in elementary school. Because.
No, I mean, there was standards of like X amount of push-ups. You had to do the mile in so many minutes and the presidential. But really, that wasn't every day. That was, for me in my era, that was something we were training for the actual test. There was a gym PE test that you had to be able to pass that presidential fitness something. I forget what it was even called. But just to stay on topic with the food pyramid, why don't you outline what we're actually going to talk about in this episode?
Sure. We've outlined we're going to talk about, we've already touched on the first one, the origins of the food pyramid, how it became flawed, and the long-term consequences that it's had. And how to build a better framework for nutritional today.
Yeah, and it's funny because, you know what? We're recording this on Christmas Day. By the time you see this, it'll be New Year. So Happy Christmas, Pada, for all of you out there. Merry Christmas,
Merry Christmas.
Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy New Year. Because by the time you see this,
today is Christmas. Just call it what it is.
Today is Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Wow. So yeah, but by the time you see this, it will be the New Year. We're recording on Christmas because we don't have littles anymore, and this is what we get to decide. We get to decide what we want to do now. We don't got to wake up at 4 a.m. and open presents, and those were fun seasons. For nutrition. That's where I was going. Was yes, it's Christmas morning for us here, but you woke up and you were studying nutrition, ironically, this morning for yourself.
For myself, yeah. One of the things that I thought that I should start doing is paying more attention to my body, the temple that I live in, and this earth suit that we have here. And I'm not just talking about diet. I would say our diet is pretty above average. Would you say? I mean, we cheat a lot.
We don't eat like out a lot. We have lately since
Yeah.
transferring them away to his new place and stuff. We ate out a ton, but not typically. I mean,
we're not loading on carbs and stuff like that.
and-
We cook healthy. We try to stay away from the center of the grocery store, that kind of stuff.
We're not healthy, but we're not horrible. I'm not sure.
But anyway,
we can always improve.
That's right. And I'm always looking to improve. So some of the things I was thinking about today, which you brought the subject when you came out and we were watching the podcast, and I was just blown away that how come everything starts out with poor people? I mean,
what do you mean?
Well, he was talking about how we had a surplus of freaking grain after the war because all of our boys went across seas to be killed, and no one was running the farms. So the government scoops all the farms up and subsidizes them and has all this grain stacked
now
away.
they want to do
And
something
now
with it. Now
we're
they
going to
find
sell it to the
ways,
public.
yeah.
But it started out with giving it away, trying to develop a food stamp program for the poor people. So we start developing grains and cereals and food stamps, and next thing you know, it's just a barrel of fun.
And again,
Piss me
without
off.
trying to be too political, I will say I think most of us could agree, regardless of where you fall on the spectrum of your political allegiance, is truly that we probably all could agree the government doesn't need their hands in everything, especially things like our food. And I know we have the FDA, and we could get into all of that, but a lot of that is just, that's where
here's
what we've allowed in our food is pretty
why
bad.
is walking down the cereal aisle in Safeway the same as walking down Vegas Strip? I mean, good God.
Well, they've marketed to children, especially cereal, so the bright colors, the sugars, the salts, the flashy, characters.
Filled with the grains and breads and sugars
and just chemicals and food dyes.
But back when I was a kid, the nutrition was protein. Protein is what you ate.
You had a full plate, and that's why they're
but
trying to go to my plate.
protein was in your
you
diet.
You had protein, you had a vegetable, and you had a piece of bread, and then you had a glass of milk, typically.
The American breakfast was bacon and eggs, not cereal.
Can you tell we're a little bit passionate about this? Okay, so I might have to bleep out a lot of words this episode.
Anyway, protein. We had bacon and eggs for breakfast. We had a sandwich with not peanut butter and jelly. Well, maybe I had peanut butter and jelly. But there was,
I'm a child of the 80s, so by the 80s, high fructose corn syrup was being made and found it was more profitable than sugar, which, I mean, and we're going to talk about this. We have so many documentaries that we've watched in our marriage together, in our lifetime together, food documentaries especially, which I will list some of them here in a short little bit, but then I'll also try to put some in the description so you can do your own research.
Yes.
Don't ever take anyone's word. You just asked me before we started this episode, there's so much information, and a lot of the information is so contradictory. It's like, wait, this person said eggs are bad, and this person said eggs are, we need, who do you listen to?
Well,
you have to decide who you're going to listen to.
I'll tell you who to listen to.
Who?
Me. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Listen to you.
Yeah.
Listen to you.
But educate yourself enough to know what that is.
I believe if we start getting in
sometimes.
touch with our intuition, we'll know when bullshit comes.
How well are people in touch with their intuition?
Yes.
That's the thing. We have been programmed, and I mean, we're getting so far off track right at the moment, but that's okay. Sometimes this happens. We're so programmed not to follow our intuition that sadly we have to first find that to be able to listen to ourselves properly. So jumping back on board here,
Where are we?
the USDA aimed to simplify nutrition for the public, which is the reason they started the food pyramid. They were thinking, people need to be educated, and we're going to be the ones to educate them. Which again, I think, I'm kind of torn about how much do you let the government educate you. Now we have the whole Department of Education and things like that, but we see how well that's working out. So not so sure about that. And then also the influence of agricultural surplus, like grains that you just said, that shaped the food pyramid.
I think one of the things that the gentleman said on one of the podcasts was he said this. He says, we got a lot of shit wrong back in the day. I mean, we were duped by cigarettes. Right? I mean, marketing
like
and all this
really
sold us on cigarettes.
In those early
but there were
years.
things we did right. And what we've done as a government has
society,
thrown all of it out and redid it all. And that's not, we need to start thinking for ourselves. And one of the things, I think we had a podcast about this earlier, listening to our own bodies.
We've talked about food, we've talked about money, we've talked about listening to ourselves, but still.
I was talking about.
You can never out-talk this
Your
stuff.
body is screaming at you every day. Every day. whether it's good or bad, the good things and the bad things. Last night, we did a little favor for a family down the road. Played.
So kids, if you're watching, step out for 1 second.
We played Santa Claus. And
Yeah, we played Santa.
I took the cookies and milk and but they were anyway, we had just eaten a great dinner.
Really good dinner.
Really good dinner. Yeah. I did not feel stuffed, bloated, or anything. I ate 3 bites of this.
God. 3 bites? Your bites are like...
Okay, so by the time I got back to the house, wherever I did, because they left a freaking plate like this.
There's a lot of cookies.
And we didn't take the whole plate because we didn't want to do that. We just left the crumbs. Anyway, I was so bloated. And my body was saying, hey, that you should, and I knew exactly.
That was the cookies.
That was the cookies. I'm going to pay the price, so I better start drinking baking soda. And it's like I was listening to a podcast this morning about this guy. He's over 40. And
we don't just record podcasts. We listen to a lot of podcasts. Well, again, it's just us. We're always trying to be sponges and absorb information. Granted, sometimes we have absorbed some really raunchy information and had to like unlearn that later in years. That's why I'm saying like, educating yourself, it's a lifelong thing. You might find out in 5 years that what you thought you knew as truth, now you're like, oh,
just move forward. All you can do is move forward.
The information you have today that you feel is the best.
So anybody blaming somebody for something they did 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 minutes ago is stupid. That's that
easier said than done, though.
It's true. That person is gone, and it no longer exists. Anyway, I regressed again.
Digressed.
True. Shit, I had a good thought.
You were talking about the podcast. You were talking about the cookies.
What the guy was saying, why I said all that is the point he was making is at 40 and above in his weightlifting training, he now started to listen to his body because it wasn't recovering like it used to recover.
Yeah.
He didn't have to be, as he put it, ego Joe, where those last steps, I gotta get it. Just do what he can, and that's it. I mean, and still have a great routine.
I find this so interesting because like last episode, which we talked about parenting through the stages and phases, I rewatched it because I do all the editing. You were kind of quiet. You shared here and there. You're like on a fireball today.
Well, I don't know.
This is a passionate topic. And like you said, you woke up like with this in your head and on your heart and you filled your mind with it.
It's so awesome to have a relationship with somebody that actually gets up and thinks the same.
Because I was not like, I don't know what you do in the morning. You shut the door and you're in the dining room by yourself and I'm in the bedroom, and usually I'm up around the same time as you, but I'm not ready to be up. Like I'll listen to podcasts or I'll listen to, motivational things, have meditation time. I chose to listen to something very funny, a podcast, Mike Rowe. You got to check out Mike Rowe's podcast. His mom, his Christmas tea with his mom,
and I watched.
Was so good.
I think it's got Dr. Mike Renaissance Trade. He's got bald head. He's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like
so we're watching 2 different things, but I had seen after I finished my episode, this episode about the food pyramid with Mike Rowe and his guests, and I was like, oh, let's watch that together. So we started watching that, and then we were like, let's talk about that because we're both already on that page.
Well, what just happened yesterday?
Passionate for us.
Food has always been something that we're passionate for, and I actually wanted to, and we're going to do a podcast in the future about moon phases. So
pretty soon. Yes.
Part of the moon phase we're in now is
the last quarter right now. The new moon will be coming up in a few weeks.
Last quarter is only one day. I was already gone. We're in the getting ready for the new moon,
which is like in 5 days from now.
Correct. So this is the time we start analyzing our lives and saying, this no longer serves me.
Yeah.
Well,
where are we going? What are we heading?
Carbohydrates and chocolate chip cookies are no longer going to serve me until they're right in my face. It's really hard to be disciplined.
The cold turkey it? I feel like you're really good at.
I can cold turkey it, but the problem is with the sweets is I like the smoke pot, as you all freaking know, and you get the munchies, and so I got
the munchies have to be those sugars.
So no, what the munchies need to be.
Find a new thing for you.
But sometimes that's the thing about all this shit. They make the junk food cheap.
Yep.
And they make the good food. Even I like what you guys said. I can't even but eating the healthy choice at Starbucks is pathetic.
You're just gonna have to find new munchies
almonds
for yourself for sure. But he was talking about. So Mike asked the guest, so do you think that sugar has killed more people than cocaine? The guy's like, yes. Do you think it's killed more than fentanyl? Yes. And the reason being is we don't realize how much sugar we're consuming so much every day. He said back when Abraham Lincoln was president, they consumed like a pound of sugar a person a year, maybe. But now we consume up to 300 pounds of sugar a person a year.
But what if that is fake sugar too, which is even worse?
Oh no, but even still, just all the chemicals, all the sugars. And you could say, how am I consuming? That means a pound of sugar a day. No, I'm not. And we're thinking literal like sugar. Because I remember when and we're so far off the food pyramid, but it's okay.
But remember the ketchup bottle?
When we were trying to get high fructose corn syrup out of our life, our son was younger, and we're like, you know what, we watched a documentary again, and we're like, let's purge it all. You went through the fridge. You went downstairs and you purged the fridge. You went through the entire house of food, storage stuff. It was in the bread. It was in the jelly. You were just like so saddened and angered by how much sugar was in everything. So yes, it's very easy that if you're drinking a soda alone is like 32 grams of sugar. I mean, so it doesn't take much when you might be having 3 or 4 sodas a day, and then the cookies, and then a donut over
Oh,
here,
and
and then bread, just bread, and then jelly, and
energy
so it
drinks.
happens so fast.
I mean, energy
so
drinks,
quickly.
we're all addicted to the
Which,
energy.
I mean, I will say the food pyramid does have sugar on the lower end, and that's not what's really ruined us completely, is just the sugar. It is the whole food pyramid, and what they've told us, you have to eat more grains than anything else, and the way we have produced our grains has just destroyed us. But let's get back on. So let's find our notes here. Flaws in the food pyramid. Let's see. So there's a heavy emphasis on carbs and fat on the food pyramid. And though we have been told like fat is bad, we do need fat. We need all of them. Let's be honest. We need the carbs, the proteins, the fats, and all of these to run our brain. Like I was listening to something the other day that said our brain is 80% cholesterol, but yet we've been sold this lie since the 80s or before that no cholesterol. Cholesterol's bad.
Well, then they did retract on that because they now are saying
not really, not
good.
much.
Now you
They
can
just go
eat.
back and forth on eggs are good, eggs are bad, but still everyone says, "How's your cholesterol?" Anyways, just getting back to here, just what they emphasize on. The base of the pyramid recommends 6 to 11 servings of grains per day, but not all grains are equal. And why do you think that's problematic? Having that much grains.
Your body can't digest grains that quickly. Everything you're eating has a certain amount of digested time frame.
How's things digest? So like meat takes the
Right.
longest to digest.
So you wouldn't eat a
Certain
banana.
fruits like melons are digested very quickly. So you don't eat those foods together because could cause a lot of digestional issues. So a lot of people, I think it's called food combination. I can't remember now. It's been so long. I'm sorry. But I mean, we had charts on this. We had friends who were raw food eaters. We had people educating us all the time. Now I will say, I want to just put this disclaimer out now. We don't know it all, and we don't have all the answers. We might even butcher some information as we repeat it because it's been a while since we've talked about.
We don't
some of
even
this.
go back to look at those things.
So, weigh things out yourself,
Yeah.
please, people. I don't want to get hate mail and everyone being like, oh, you were wrong on this. I'm just going to tell you, I'm probably going to be wrong on things as we say them. I'm going to try not to be. And with our notes, we try to keep as much fact as possible. But we also have personal opinion and also, obviously, personal feelings that are coming out about what has been happening in our home. And I will say, let's go back up one quick second because we have watched so many food documentaries. Maybe we've said this in a previous episode. I'm probably sure when we talked about food in another episode, how the day we were watching the fireman one, what was the name of that documentary?
Forks Over
Knives, Engine 2 diet. That was the day. We were watching this thing and we had both decided, wow, we need to improve our diet. And I feel like we've gone through this a lot, as most Americans are. We kind of 360. We always start a diet and come back around. And that's why we're not better off, because it's a lifestyle, not just occasional, let's get on the merry-go-round and come back to where we were.
Let's look at the early shows and see.
But hold on, before you say that, like we were watching that documentary and we got a phone call, your mom had a heart attack.
Right.
And prior to that, only a few years before, your father died of a heart attack. So your family, we've talked about food in another episode, just our differences. My family just ate to live. Your family lived to eat. And it showed. Like my family's all pretty much the same size until certain ones get older. Some of the women put on
I
more
was the
weight.
black sheep of the family.
You were usually thinner, but you got to a place at a certain part of our marriage, you just ballooned up. And it really was because we had surrounded ourselves with your family.
Yeah.
So we picked up his family's eating habits. So choose wisely who you hang out with and who you're taking information
It's so
from.
hard to and realize that the majority will overtake you.
Yeah, even if you're trying to be strong, you're either going to find yourself in that or you're going to be the one person in the crowd that's judging everyone.
Yeah.
So neither of those are helpful at all.
Quietly do your thing.
So let's see, critique over the fat simplification. Oh my gosh, can't even say this word. Not all fats are bad, and we were just saying this before, like avocados and nuts and coconuts. And our friend who is the raw food eater said one time he went to the doctor because he gets his blood done every year. They go through and he runs through it because he wants to stay healthy. And the doctor said, your cholesterol and your fats are so high right now. And he's like, how? I'm a raw food diet, eater. And he realized it's because he ate so much coconut
and avocados
and bananas and not bananas, but nuts, raw nuts and things like that. And it's okay. Now, granted, know this, everything in moderation. I don't think you just need to gorge out on coconuts and avocado every day to try to meet your fat intake.
See why anybody would want to do
But
that.
yeah, it sounds kind of sickening. So not all grains are the same. They're problematic because also we have, GMO, which we watched a documentary about that too. I'll give you a list of a bunch of documentaries here at the end. If you hold out till the end, you'll have some more. So grains are just, and what they're sprayed with, even our food at this point. Not all fats are bad. Find the fats that are good. Dairy overemphasis is in the food pyramid. And I would say, we started noticing this watching older TV shows back again, around the 50s, and so they really started pushing milk. Like every child had a milk glass in front of them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everyone had milk. And I was like, I grew up across the street from a dairy farm, my grandmother's house in Maine. She lived across from a dairy farm. Certain times a day smelled horrendous because you're smelling all those cows. And we did not drink milk at every meal like that. That was complete propaganda.
What other animal, one, drinks milk
After it's weaned.
after it's weaned?
Well, the comedian one
And
guy
two,
says...
what other animal drinks somebody else's totally different?
Yeah,
I mean, they're
species.
not species milk.
Well, I heard a comedian say that someone asked him that, his sister, who was a dairy-free person, like, we're the only species who drinks milk after we're weaned. And he's like, well, we're the only species who has cookies. So, but I mean, we've not had dairy in a long time. We've had dairy substitutes for milk, which I'm also learning a little bit about that. And when you have almond milk and also what chemicals and what kind of byproducts and preservatives, it's almost, when you start taking the path of educating yourself on really anything, I feel like
be eating nothing.
food especially, but you start to get sad about like what is actually good, what can I eat, if even the produce I want to buy because I know it's healthier is sprayed and filled with so much junk. How do I eat? What do I eat? And that's going back again, you're gonna have to trust your intuition, tap into the intuition and go with that.
I know my family's motto was, I love ... food, but it doesn't love me.
Oh yeah.
And it was like,
Well, then why
that's
do you
your
keep
body
doing that?
telling
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
I've said this, and I've taken that same stance. I love hot chicken wings, but they don't love me.
It's hot sauce, tomato sauces, it's acidic sauces.
All those things I have
But you have had, since I've met you,
bombarded
25,
myself.
26
I've
years.
abused my body with those things. Therefore, I'm now paying that price. So I need to eliminate those things.
Yeah,
And every
we talked
time,
about that, like,
every
before.
time I go to have a fried food dinner of any
Oh,
type,
you're so sick. And I'm like, why do you do this? But yeah, just getting back to the food pyramid, just the overemphasis, the disgusting, the dairy industry. Again, anytime you get the government involved in things they really shouldn't be, the dairy industry, like you were talking about grains after the world wars, like they had to, the government, subsidize all these farmers because the men were over there, the farms because the men were gone. They took over that, and then the dairy industry gets taken over, and now they want to push all this on the public. So all the propaganda, all the media, all the stuff that gets pushed on you that you need to have this to be healthy. And dairy has a lot of lobbyists. Grains have a lot of lobbyists. It's just, I was listening to, I forget who it was the other day, talking about the amount of lobbyists. There are more lobbyists than there are congressmen, senators, anything. Just, it's crazy the amount of lobbyists that are in Washington, D.C. If we could flush them out, that'd be awesome, because it's almost, to me, that feels like, and I'm not the most educated person in politics, so please just, this is my opinion, and I'm saying this is what it feels like for me.
I'm being quiet
feels
right
like
now.
manipulation, like bought off bribery is what lobbyist is.
Well, I heard this is not
you
even
can
on
probably
topic.
have a different opinion.
I heard something that somebody had said that they wanted to take every bill that gets made and make it public on an internet platform where you could read it. And why do we have to have a bill this thick to have a stop sign put somewhere? Because everything has to be attached to a bartering
always
system.
somebody
There's always
throwing
someone
stuff in
getting their hands greased. And
So I want to also go back to, and you can talk on this one. I'll introduce the topic. How was protein misrepresented in the
well,
last? How do you feel personally that it's been misrepresented?
so soy protein, whey protein, plant-based protein, and I'm a protein shake. I'm not a guru. I have a protein shake.
Yeah, just your personal opinion. That's all I'm asking.
My personal opinion on how it's been represented, it is crazy. From the fact that if you drink a soy protein shake, you're going to turn into a male's going to turn into a female. In fact, it's so astronomical. When you do the science, your body needs estrogen. In order to estrogen plus testosterone means man. I mean, it gives you the energy.
We both have both in us. It's just like you have more,
trying to get rid of soy and saying it's going to turn you gay or homosexual or
there is a little
whatever.
bit of a difference between like soy in Japan and soy in America. And that's where like one of the things that I feel like, and going back,
Soy in Japan is probably better. It's freaking grown. So.
Oh yeah, no, but the soy here is definitely not the best. I'm saying more, what do you feel has been the worst thing that they've misled people about red meat?
Oh, that's going to give you a heart attack.
Yeah, that was what we were watching. Remember when we cut out red meat 15, 20 years ago?
And you know what? Where do we get our test? Where does them? And well, I can go all into that. But protein is where a man gets his testosterone and builds his strength. Well, not just a man, a human gets their strength. And
so what about the vegan who's going to say, how animals are treated and all the things that happen, and you can get protein from plants?
You can, but you're going to have to eat a lot of that plant. And if that's your gig, that's your gig. Because it was our gig for a while.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That was what we were watching the day your mom had the heart attack, and we said, no more red meat. We're done. And I think that's actually the message of the documentary of the Forks Over Knives, the Engine 2. The diet plan is no
when
red
I was
meat at all.
When I was a kid, my grandfather was a butcher. We had meat every night for dinner.
Yeah.
And of some sort. Whether it was ham, it was always good cuts of meat.
But you're still a kid in the 60s and 70s.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but
take a look at the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
And then look at Modern Family. There you go. And you'll just see the two differences of the healthiness. And someone said, just one podcast we were listening to promoting fat bashing or whatever it is.
Fat shaming. Fat shaming.
This person is way overweight.
And he said this though, fat shaming is wrong.
It is wrong.
Any kind of shame. You'll never shame someone into change. Fat shaming is not what we need. But we do need
education.
to stop. We do need to stop idolizing fatness as you're so amazing. This is so great. She needs to just be fat because.
Well,
she's
that's a
so
lie.
great. That's again the propaganda.
Saying somebody's healthy at 300 pounds.
Yeah, that's not healthy.
A cow should weigh 300. A baby cow weighs 300 pounds. A human does never get to 300 pounds ever.
But your dad died. Well, before he died, he got up to like 350,
354.
400. Yeah. And now, like the same person you talked about that we were listening to on the podcast said he was watching a TikTok or like a video of a little girl who was not even 6. She was wider than she was taller. And he said, I just started crying. Because this is his life's goal, the guy who we watched, and I'll link everything later. But like I said that to you, we drove by the other day, drove home from somewhere, and there was a man at the bus stop, and he had conjunctivitis. Is that how he said?
Like ankles,
his legs, from all the way to the foot, all the way up was huge.
And you said that has to be so much pain.
God. It hurts me looking at people this.
When my mom had her heart attack, her legs were swollen up, and she diagnosed as congestive heart failure.
Yeah, because that fluid is not coming back up. So for us to say you're beautiful as you are, that you don't worry, there's beauty in that. That has to stop. Now, fat shaming is not okay. Any shaming is not okay. You can't shame someone for being too skinny or too weird or too ugly. It's not going to help them change. It's not going to help them improve. An alcoholic, to shame them, they're not going to get better. So fat shaming is not okay, but let's stop saying that fat is healthy, that fat is something that we should idolize. Definitely not okay. And I feel like that is also part of the propaganda here. But going back to the red meat, like I haven't had a lot of red meat since we saw that documentary. I've been like, I'm good without it. I never craved meat anyway. I remember as a kid, my grandma would make steak and liver, or what is that called? Liver and onions, and even having steak. Like we grew up with farms nearby in the small town of Maine, and we had my grandparents and my mom and my dad, they all had gardens, so we had fresh produce. It wasn't until later 80s that like Twinkies and junk started coming out, and they would occasionally buy it. I didn't grow up on that, but like I had real good stuff. But I remember even as a kid, just meat, like those red meats, I would chew forever. I said that too the other day. I'm like, I had a piece of jerky. I'm like, I am still chewing this. I don't like meat. But yesterday we were talking about what to make for Christmas dinner tonight, since it's just the two of us. And I said, really weirdly, I'm actually craving a steak. And he's been eating steak back for a little while now. And but I was just like, but I need it to be super tender. I don't want to chew this like a tire. So I'm saying my body, like I haven't craved steak like you have. And red meat.
Going back to that, my grandfather, if you ground meat, you ate it that same day.
Yeah, I mean now we've got so much preservatives. The pink slime inside of our ground.
So he had, and I remember going as a kid, and I think I've said this in other episodes. The things I remember most about the butcher shop was the sawdust all over the floor. Now I know why it's there, because of the blood. But yeah, you don't see that back in Winn-Dixie now, do you?
Yeah, no. I'm not sure where all that stuff's taking place, but just
But he would say the ground beef that's everything. That's the scraps.
Right.
That is
that's
the shit the fat man doesn't take.
So is it bad for you? That's kind of the
because they would cut the stuff and throw. I remember there would be like these white bins that were under the cutting tables, and they would throw all the shit in, and that's what they make. I said, "What's that?" That's where we make the hot dogs and the ground beef. And that's what. But he would.
So going back to that.
So when he would give ground
beef is made now.
When he would give ground beef to us, it wasn't from there. It was from the top of the table.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. But you go to the store, you see these tubes of ground beef. They're like this, and you open up, and they're not even pink anymore. They're like this.
No, they got pink slime in them.
Yeah.
But I will say something that bothered me, that like part of the reason that I wasn't having red meat, especially hamburger, is when we learned that like in the ground meat now you can have 80 different cows from different places. Right. And it's just like, and you don't know what diseases, and yes, they're trying to put all these vaccines and all these things in them, but then I also end up ingesting all of this stuff that cow had.
But if you have a New York strip, that's only one cow. One cow.
Yeah, so I'm not big on ground meat, which I do ground turkey, which probably is just as bad.
Yeah.
The things that are missing from the food pyramid is a focus on whole foods, over-processed grains, and sugar consumption. We don't talk about that in the food pyramid. We don't teach this stuff at school. We don't educate our kids about this because we don't know enough, so we're not educating our kids any better.
So you think you're buying a healthy loaf of bread,
yeah,
which that's been taken and bleached, the grain's been bleached, and then they re-put nutrients in it. It's so bad.
Oh, yeah, one of the ladies, this was before podcasts even were a thing. Like 20 years ago, we listened to someone, I can't remember what her thing was, about cancer and how white flour, how all this processed stuff. And she said about enriched flour, because if you look on the back of your flour, or look on the back of a bread, or anything that uses flour, it'll say enriched flour. And what it is it puts 4 nutrients back in. So an original grain, I want to say, don't quote me again, I think she said over 24 or something like that, nutrients were in
one grain.
Grains for flour. When we started enriching it, she said it's like robbing you on the street but giving you back your sock and calling you rich. So because now we took all the nutrients out and we put 4 back in, this is enriched flour. But again, no one teaches us this. The food pyramid didn't teach us this. The schools don't teach us this. The schools are actually part of the government program, which also is pushing dairy and grains. Our son, who went to high school himself, he said breakfast is free at high schools, most places. Because why? They need these kids on dairy and sugars and junk. I mean, I'm telling you, he would tell us what was in this breakfast carts for free. I'm like, don't eat that stuff, buddy. And he's like, yeah, no. And then they wheel it into the sun. Mark was telling, another friend of ours who's a teacher was saying, no one wants the milk. And then the teachers would push it out because they get like scored, these schools, or get in trouble if they don't push the milk. And so they push it out into the sidewalks, so the kids, because they wouldn't even come into the cafeteria, push it into the sidewalks, and then now the milk's going bad in the sun. Because kids don't really, they wouldn't naturally drink that much milk. We're not having milk with every meal. Anyways, we got to keep going because I feel like we've gotten nowhere on this. Go to segment 3 here, consequences of the food pyramid.
So yeah, when you start eating cereals and grains and all those things as the primary part of it, and well, I'm not eating cereal and grain as the primary part of my diet. Yes, you are. Everything.
Most likely, there's a lot of grain in your day.
The bread, the Lunchables, all those things, the crackers. Why is those aisles so freaking big?
And colorful and bright.
And you see that they go. People are.
So when we have carbs, it does break down to sugars, just like sugar. So we've ended up with obesity and diabetes as a huge issue.
And diabetes is only stage 1 of Alzheimer's.
Yeah. So actual Alzheimer's is, I think, diabetes 2 or 3. I forget now. You can look it up. Look it up for sure. We're the only country that calls it diabetes, not. I mean, I'm sorry. We're the only country that calls it Alzheimer's, not diabetes. So sugar intake is our problem with creating this obesity and memory loss and diabetic issues.
We replace sugar with the proper cholesterol, and therefore we have brains that don't have any liquid in them at all.
Oh, it's so bad. Yeah. So
nobody's drinking the right kind of water. I mean, our water.
There's so many documentaries on that too. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Like people, actually, we were talking to somebody yesterday, and we were talking about getting water out of a stream versus water out of your tap.
Yeah.
And then they were like, should I drink the tap water?
We have a program for bottled water, which is a whole other documentary.
Should I drink the tap water that comes out of a well?
Yeah.
And
a personal well.
It's like, why do you think, like,
but we've also studied a lot of that too. We've corrupted because of our farmland. We lived in South Florida, and there was sugarcane out west. Yeah. And the amount of runoff of fertilizers
Roundup
and all that would go through the canal system and end up in our oceans, and we get red tide all the time. And other algae completely. Because the ocean is trying to actually heal itself with all that we're doing to it. So honestly, like, yes, the question still does stand, and it is hard to answer. Should I drink my tap water because of all that's seeped into the earth? It can become a depressing,
because what happens is we do the same thing as the bread. You strip all of the, like we have a Berkey, and we literally strip all the water of all its nutrients, and now we're drinking liquid. That's it.
It's hard to find truly mineralized water that we haven't remineralized.
Well, we can go down to Manitou here and drink it.
I don't know. Because again, you're talking what has run off into the water. But I want to also point out like how many of us grew up thinking low fat meant healthy, and because of the food pyramid and because of the narratives that were told to us through the Weight Watchers and all these organizations and stuff. I remember my grandmother was a lifetime Weight Watchers member, and I was a child. This was early 80s. And everything she started having was low fat. They started coming out with like a no fat or low fat ice cream and like all these things. So people really believed that was what was healthy for them.
Well, when you say low fat, you're talking about that shit, right? Because when I
say, they're saying across the board. Yes, junk food too, but across the board, low fat.
When I think low fat, I'm thinking, I'm going to take my New York strip that I just cooked. Now the fat on it.
Yeah, but it'll cook off.
No, it doesn't all the time. Okay. But say there's that fat strip that's there. I used to love that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I could give him my fat off of steaks when we first got married and watch him chew it like gum.
Now I cut that off. I use it for the flavor for the steak while I cook it. Sure. But that's a low fat diet to me. You're talking about the added.
No, I'm talking about the low fat diet they told you.
They take cheese.
They've told you.
And they've turned it into low fat cheese. I don't want that. I want the cheese that they say is going to give me a heart attack. That's the cheese that I want.
And again, it was all marketing. It was all like this whole thing.
But why? Why would you strip the fat out or that kind? Because that's like margarine. What the hell?
Well, see, and I have had margarine for many, many years. I remember when
it's more healthy to take a slab of butter.
It's true. Just have straight butter. But I remember my biological father and his wife, my stepmom, like she only would have margarine and he would have real butter. He's like, that stuff's junk. And then we started learning
one
about
molecule away from being plastic.
One ingredient away from plastic or something, or one molecule. So I forgot what it is. Away from plastic. So I've been, for 10 years, since we watched that documentary probably, I haven't had real dairy, I haven't had real butter, I haven't had red meat, very little, I'll say very little, because I try not to like offend people if we go to their house. I don't want to be that, Karen who's like, I can't have that and that's organic.
Is that a Karen? I thought a Karen was...
They just want to complain about everything, that's what that means. But I just haven't had a lot of it. And then I was like, you know what? I started buying butter again the other day and I was like, okay, we're just going to buy something we're going to buy what has the least amount of ingredients. That's what we're going to do, is if it's in a box or a bin or somewhat processed, the least amount of ingredients was really what we want to stick to, which is why Doritos and all that shit is coming off of, as soon as RFK gets in, it's coming off the shelves within 4 months, because guys, it's just bad for us. We already know this, but we're addicted. It's a drug.
Are we going to have zombies walking around?
We might have some withdrawal time, for sure. All right, so let's push and end here with a better path forward.
Well, that's up to anybody's individual. I mean, and this is the conversation that you and I had this morning, because you started. But I said, when I was saying to you, I don't need to, Mom. Yeah, I can do my.
Try.
I know, because and I understand. I used to think you were nagging me, but now I know you love me. So,
I do love you.
So, but stop loving me there.
I also know the history of your family, and that scares me at times. That your mom, your dad, everyone has died of a heart attack or cancer. And it's scary. So if I see you not feeling good or you sick or like when you bump yourself and you have bruises on you, it makes me think of everyone who's died before you. So it's really fear that, comes into play. And I'm like, I don't want to live without you. So please take care of yourself. And if you're not going to, guess what? I'm going to feed you. I'm going to tell you what you're going to eat, because I don't want to be alone here. But ending here on whole foods, healthy fats, limiting sugar and processed foods.
Since now that they've made this rule of, I'm not a rule. You've heard the saying, shop the outside of the grocery store.
Maybe you haven't heard that. Shop the outside.
No, don't do that, because now they've caught on. I mean,
what do you mean?
You go to Safeway or King Soups now, and they got on the outside. They got all the shit: fried chicken, Starbucks.
It's deli, though.
They have put this, and all the racks are now on the outside.
I still think it's better than shopping the inner aisles.
I agree.
Not that you can avoid everything on the inner aisles, because we're still going to have to buy stuff in the inner aisles. But
I'd say
pay attention
shop
to what
refrigeration.
You see how much processed food is in refrigeration too.
True, yeah.
There is no real great formula. It's just listen to your body. If you feel sick, like you were saying, after you eat something, stop eating that. Even if it's been your favorite and you don't understand why it's not working, like you're gonna have to make some sacrifices.
So the thing that if I was asked the advice, the thing that I would say is go to Dr. You. You are the best. Your body is the best doctor out there.
Listen to your body, which we do have a whole episode about. We have 2 episodes. One of them is about how hard it is to change, because we've programmed ourselves. We programmed ourselves to want all this sugar and preservatives and dyes. They're now like, that's what they live on. So it's going to have a withdrawal period of getting off of this
It's
stuff.
just like any addiction. You're going to have to change, replace.
Yeah. But really, just looking at some of the things here, limiting the sugar, and really watch what example you're setting for your kids too. Last episode, we talked all about parenting, and there's so much we pass on from parenting that's so unhealthy for our kids, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Mentally, that we've done it for so long that now our kids, we've trained them to do it. So pay attention, because if you want them to live longer, not feel as sick, fat, sick, and nearly dead as you, you're going to have to make some changes for yourself.
Just start looking at people. Look at your own fingernails, your own toenails, and your teeth.
A lot of people's toenails are pretty bad, like yellow.
And that is an indication of, and your skin.
I was going to say, your skin is the biggest indicator. We don't realize, like we had someone in our family who joined the military, and they got all the vaccinations all at one time, and their whole body broke out with a rash. Because your skin is the #1 indicator of what is not. Everything's being pushed out that your body says, this isn't for us. Get it out of us. This is too much, too fast, too hard. So your skin, I would say, start at your skin. Your skin is the largest organ in your body, and it's going to read the most. You want to read tea leaves? Fine, but also read your skin. Just to hurry and wrap up here, this does say shop the perimeter of the grocery store. I still do think that's better than the interior.
Probably your safest place, true, but be careful.
Add more color. We had a whole saying years ago, eat the rainbow.
Oh, yeah.
Not Skittles. That's taste the rainbow, but eat the rainbow in the sense of add those natural foods into your body, those whole foods of all the colors. Teach your kids to eat the rainbow. And question food marketing. I don't think as a society we question enough. We have for too long absorbed they said it. They're the experts. That must mean they're right, including our doctors. So we've just been like, well, they went to school, so they know better. But they're practicing. You're the person who's the perfection. You're like you said, you're the something of your body. What did you say? The doctor of your body.
Yeah.
Now I get that there are times and spaces that something is just out of our wheelhouse, and we're going to need someone else's input.
It's funny, when you go to the doctor, they interview you to find out what's wrong with you.
Yeah, and you got to answer those questions. I feel this.
And you tell them,
so interview yourself.
I think I have this. Oh, wow, you do.
You do. Here's a medication for it. But question food marketing, read ingredient labels. We've talked about this a ton.
Turn your commercials off.
We have been muting commercials as long as I can
Just
remember.
turn them off. They're not selling you anything.
Stop. I
Yeah.
mean, and there is also on YouTube, I forget where it is. I'll try to find it and put it in the description. But like this one older gentleman who was in the marketing industry, I think, for his career.
But listen to our commercials.
And then, he does like, what if commercials really were honest? And so he goes into like energy drinks, and if you were really honest how you marketed an energy drink and what it does, what's in it. He goes into like just what's in the ingredients of foods, and it's just an older gentleman who does this so professionally. And I laugh. I mean, comedians talk about that. If drug commercials were honest about that you're dealing with depression, and then all the side effects that could come with it.
They are honest.
No, they're not.
They tell you at the end.
Yeah, but what you're watching, you're watching people be
how is
happy.
Ozempic make me want to dance and go down the
causes
street
so much
and
depression,
jump
too.
up and down and the colors and oh my god.
But
Or
I mean, it's
a
just,
Western
let's
movie.
start questioning and ask more. That's all. Be curious. Ask more questions for yourself. Not for the point of debating and causing problems within your home, but for yourself. Just start questioning things. I'm going to give you a quick list here of some really great documentaries, food documentaries that we've watched. And again, it's been a while since we've seen some of them, so I can't say I agree 100% with everything on all of them. Pick what sounds great to you. I'm just going off of the IMBD list, the IMBD.com. That is the best food documentaries list that they have. So Forks Over Knives, we watched. Food Inc. was amazing. Super Size Me. That was the guy who has 30 days at McDonald's. Oh my God.
Well, they don't do that anymore now.
Woo, do what?
I don't think they supersize anymore.
Oh, I don't know. Probably not.
We haven't been
Yeah,
there.
we probably took that off. Food Matters, Fat, Sick, Nearly Dead. That one was really good, and he's got 2 parts to that. Let's see, The Future of Food, Blue Gold, which is the water wars and like how we started bottling water, Our Daily Bread.
Evian spelled backwards is naive.
Evian spelled backwards is naive. Please pay attention to marketing. Tapped is another one that's about water, the water thing. Where's the other one? Food Fight is another one that's good. Let's see.
What did someone say the other day?
Farmageddon is amazing. The war that they had on raw food farms.
A conspiracy. What's the difference between conspiracy
What's
and
the difference
truth?
between the conspiracy and truth?
6 months.
It's about 6 months. I say it's longer than that because
Yeah.
sometimes some of it stuff takes 20 or 30 years to come out. Like when the people at Camp Lejeune were all sick and people were like, hey, there's something going on here. And then now
But there's
they're
still
just,
people there. Why
we still have people there. It's so bad.
one
Like
of our
what's happening there.
friends'
We have
kids
friends who have been there and we know firsthand how bad some of the stuff for their health has been. Let's see. I'll just list a few more here that I know that we watched.
So while she's doing that, I'm going to tell you to remind you to subscribe, like, and comment. Let us know what you think. I mean, even if it's bad.
GMO OMG. That was such a good one. With all the GMOs that we have. This was just a dad, I believe.
What was the one with the plastic bag that went around that he followed?
Plastic. I don't remember.
Where-
Food Stamped was good. Oh my goodness. What's on Your Plate? There's just, I mean, this one has American Meat, has Joe Saladin. He is really good, which I even think Mike Rowe does an interview, or maybe is it Joe Rogan? One of them has Joe Saladin on their program. He's the cowboy who looks like your dad, who has his own farm, and just, feds have come in. And even recently, I don't know if this is true, but recently apparently the reason like some of the Amish voted this year is because feds went in and emptied out all of their stores.
They aren't homogenizing their milk, which is
it's
bullshit.
just, they were so mad. And hundreds of thousands of their dollars of their livelihood was taken from them. Crazy. So Joe Saladin, look him up. It's Salatin. Really great guy. I feel like I would love to meet him, talk to him more. But just go on there and look for food documentaries. Look for maybe where you're at and what you can tolerate right now, because maybe you're thinking, I'm not ready to go vegan or raw food, and I don't know if I can do all these things. And that's not what we're saying at all. We're saying you need to find what works for you.
I think
and
the best
do the best you can for you, even though you're going to have critics on either side. You're going to have critics say, you should be eating raw meat. You're going to have critics say, what about, the dead animals and the bad treatment? Because we've watched those too. I've seen so many documentaries about how farm animals are treated as well. Devastating. It is hard to make a balanced decision, but you need to make the best choice for yourself.
Who was, he was a raw vegan something, where he didn't even eat cooked food. So the vegetables that he would eat, I think he would get to 101 degrees, and that was the highest anything he could do.
I think 108 or 12,
maybe that.
yeah.
But he was still having to take protein supplements.
You have to supplement if you're going to not
and that's
have
what
certain
he's
things.
actually. I think he sold.
And then you get into the spiral of what are the real supplements and good for you. Oh, it's a lot, guys.
And then you're getting off being natural because now you're doing something.
Yeah, it's really hard. But I just want to say and remind everyone, food isn't just our fuel. It's not something we eat to live or live to eat. It is also our medicine.
We are what we eat.
We are absolutely what we eat, which there's really good documentaries that talk about that. So let's empower ourselves to make informed choices. And truly, I would love to also hear, and you kind of said a little bit, also what are some of your food stories, and share those experiences. What are your thoughts on the food pyramid and on propaganda or on marketing, and what do you think it's done positively, or what do you think it's done negatively for you personally and or your home and your close community? So yeah, thank you listeners for tuning in. I feel like we barely scratched the surface on this because there's just not enough time. You could really do this forever. What we were watching today on that interview, he's been doing this since the 80s, and he's like, I think it's just still getting worse. We might be making a tip soon in the next 4 years, who knows? But he says, as much as I've tried to work hard for this, globally it's getting worse. It's not getting better. So you have to. The only way things happen globally is individually. Michael Jackson has a song, Look at the Man in the Mirror. Start with the man in the mirror. And that's the way change is only ever going to happen, is one of us at a time, and start trickling
one of the
that
things
out.
that we have tried to do is your dollar, that's
It's
your
the vote.
that's your true vote.
It's your true
where
vote.
you spend your money is where the people will, you can turn the ship by changing the way individually we spend our money.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, thank you all. That is all for today. We could talk about this for hours and go so much deeper.
Merry
But
Christmas belated, and
yeah, not belated.
Well, it's
by
not
then
today.
it'll be like
Right.
you'll be a month.
Oh, Happy New Year
behind.
belated.
Happy New Year.
We're going on a hike now, so
Yeah, we're gonna head out on a hike. So thank you. Be evolving. This is just one way that we've regularly tried to keep evolving, is what we're eating and consuming, and that means physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. What are we consuming? So
stay tuned for our next episode. We're going to do how the moon phases affects you,
financially as well as physically.
and what you can do. What we're trying to do, we are experimenting with on what we're going to do to see how we can benefit from those moon changes.
Remember, be evolving.
And don't forget, like, subscribe, and follow.